And bring in Tommaso Dela Longa. He's the official spokesperson for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, joining us now live from Switzerland. Tommaso, thank you very much for your time. We know that it's a very unsafe situation for everybody in Gaza, and that includes aid workers. 11 UN aid workers have been killed today, and I understand 4 Red Crescent paramedics have also been killed by Israeli airstrikes. Can you confirm those numbers and update us on the situation for your staff?
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for having me tonight. Yeah, sadly, we lost actually 5 staff and volunteers since the beginning of this last escalation of violence. The first one was killed on the Israeli side, was an ambulance driver of the Magen David Adom in Israel. And today, sadly, we lost in 2 different incidents 4 paramedics of the Palestine Red Crescent. I think that this is really a stark reminder of the violence of this escalation, and also on the fact that, we are continuing today, we reiterated our call on all the parties, saying a very basic important thing. Even war, even armed conflict have rules. By international humanitarian law, civilians and civilian infrastructure must be respected and protected. Healthcare workers, healthcare facilities, ambulances must be respected and protected. And this is really worrisome. It's concerning that this is, from Saturday to today, is not happening. And this is why we are reiterating our call to all the parties.
Yeah, and we can see live pictures of Gaza. It's dark. There's very little lighting there as the electricity has gone and the fuel is running out. How challenging does it make it for hospitals and aid workers with lack of power? And also, what's your understanding of how much supplies there are, medical supplies? Tommaso, have we lost you?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Do carry on.
Yeah, so the concerning situation is, of course, not only on one specific organization, but then for the suffering of the people in Gaza. Lack of electricity means for an hospital not being able to operate. And we know that even if we had some stocks of humanitarian aid, the preposition in Gaza for every kind of emergency, this kind of stock sooner or later will finish. And the more the escalation of violence, armed violence will continue, the more our health teams will need it, and then the more we will, we will finish it soon. So I think that, of course, there is a great concern for the next coming days in terms of being able to manage the enormous needs of the people that are in Gaza.
Yeah, the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, made a plea earlier for essential life-saving supplies to be allowed into Gaza. Clearly, international partners are working on trying to establish a humanitarian corridor. Is that something that you feel may be established in the coming days?
Well, of course, as a humanitarian, I need to stay optimistic all the time. I would say that there are several different possibilities on the table, and we do hope that we'll find safe access for much needed humanitarian aid. So if the humanitarian corridor is one of the possibilities, is warmly welcome. If a truce is one of the possibilities, is warmly welcome. If a safe passage for humanitarian aid for a couple of hours a day, just to make sure that hospitals, for instance, or our health workers will get the items needed, is much welcome. So I think that at this stage, really, the call is on all the parties to make sure that humanitarian aid will continue to reach the people who need this the most. And in this situation, people who need humanitarian aid in Gaza is an enormous number.
And Tommaso, finally, clearly there's a great need for humanitarian aid now, and the people of Gaza are in desperate situation. But this is a problem that's going back decades, perhaps 16 years, it could be argued, that this enclave has been starved of many of the supplies that it needs. Can you just put into context the situation in Gaza before any of this took place?
Well, you said it in the question. This situation is going on in the last more than a decade. And we were, there were a huge concern in terms of humanitarian needs inside of Gaza. We need to think about a vast amount of the population that mainly is surviving thanks to humanitarian aid, which could be Red Cross, but or like UNRWA, the UN agency was dedicated to the Palestinian refugee. So, of course, it's a situation of fragilities. It's a weak situation for a large number of people. And, of course, the closure of Gaza, that unfortunately, sadly, is not a news for the people in Gaza, because it happened even before, just add another layer of suffering. So we do hope that we will see an opening, or at least a way that humanitarian aid will get again inside Gaza and reach the people in Gaza.
Tommaso, we thank you very much indeed for joining us. We wish you and indeed your staff working on the ground in Gaza all the best. Thank you very much indeed.